Hey guys, today I'm just going to do a quick video on the British Premium, the Corsair F Mark II. Give you the quick rundown if you want to skip ahead to the gameplay. You have a very good dive speed, over 800 km an hour. You've got a good level flight performance speed of about 530 km per hour on the deck, going up to 615 as you can see at 7k. You've got a pretty mediocre climb rate and your turn time isn't as bad as it says there. You do have great flaps. The main enemies you want to look out for are BF-109Es and I-180Ss. So as I said guys, this is the British Rank 2 Premium Aircraft, sitting at 2.7 BR. You get a 390% RP booster and a 540 Silverline booster. Now the cost of this plane is 1,150 Golden Eagles, which you would have to buy 2 packs in order to get it its cheapest, or you could buy the single one of 2,500. Now in British pounds, now these are all in euros, these numbers, 14 euros. You put that into British pounds, it's about £12. Convert these two, it's about £7. So in Britain this would be worth about 1 hour's work on minimum wage. Whether this plane is worth that, I'll try and give my opinion on later on. So what is the Corsair Mark II? Well, at the very beginning of World War II, the Corsair was designed for the American aircraft carriers. Well, they were a bit sceptical of using them due to they had quite bad landings, quite a lot of deaths. The landing speed was quite high, which led to it's quite hard for pilots to judge whether they're too fast or too slow coming in. Basically, America was doing more trials, but Britain was pretty desperate at the time, so we took a bunch of orders. As you can see here, one of the main differences is the British Corsairs all have clipped wings. You compare it to the American. You've got a bit longer wings. Well, the reason for this is that in order to fit in Britain's aircraft carrier aircraft little bays, the actual wing was too long on the American version, so they had them chopped down. Now this does marginally improve roll rate, which is a positive. It doesn't really affect the climb rate or turn time. As you can see, 24.0 seconds, and then 12.3 meters per second. And I've not got this plane fully spaded, but it's almost spaded. I mean, it's barely any noticeable difference. You're not going to make a difference in a battle. So how did the British use this plane then? Well, everyone knows this plane has been famous for the Japanese theatre, or the Pacific theatre, sorry. But ironically, it doesn't see its first combat in the Pacific, it saw it in the North Sea. So in April 1944, aircraft carrier HMS Victorious launched some Corsairs. It took part on the German battleship Tirpitz that was in one of the fjords off Norway, basically just providing fighter cover for the Swordfish bombers. It's quite famous how Britain was still using biplanes. But obviously the Corsairs did end up in Pacific. The British Corsairs spent most of the war in the Indian and Pacific Ocean. They entered British service just as the fleet returned to the Indian Ocean in strength after the initial pullout. They took part in the strikes against Japanese targets in the Burma and Sumatra, including the oil refineries, which were vital to, obviously if you know anything about Pearl Harbor, Japan was running low on oil, so it needed all the oil it could get. Knocking out its oil refineries and attacks on them significantly reduced the Japanese Empire's ability to wage war. So in 1945 the British fleet carriers moved to the Pacific. This was to take part in the final attacks on the Japanese home islands. British Corsairs saw action against kamikaze attacks as the British Pacific Fleet attacked the Shishimima Islands, the southern end of the Japanese home islands. The British Corsair Mark II does have quite a significant part in British history. The last ever Victoria Cross issued in World War II went to a Canadian pilot called Lieutenant Robert H. Gray. He was hit by flak from a Japanese destroyer as he was approaching for a bomb run. Instead of returning to base, he carried on with his attack, dropping a 1,000-pound bomb on the destroyer and sinking it. He was posthumously awarded the Victoria Cross after his aircraft crashed into the ocean, and he sadly passed away. Now talk about the performance of the Corsair. Now obviously you're at 2.7, so performance isn't going to be stellar, but I do have to say the top speed in a horizontal line is amazing. Now the only way you'll see that top speed really is coming out of a dive. So climb at a 15-degree angle to the side, like pretty much everyone else. Then you merge with an enemy. And if you go into a shallow dive, there's nothing that can catch you at all. Dive speed in a very sharp dive is well over 800 kilometers an hour. But for a 2.7 aircraft, you really can't complain once you set yourself up properly. If this aircraft had an air spawn like the P-47s used to, you could easily put this up to 3.3 battle rating. So as I said in the snapshot around earlier at the beginning, the turn time of 24 seconds, I wouldn't say it's incredibly accurate, or I wouldn't write this plane off as a bad turner, especially not when you do have energy. You have amazing flaps. Anyone who watched Green Fury's YouTube videos will know. You can pop your landing flaps under 240 kilometers an hour in a stall and you'll turn right over. So if you do go into an engagement with the enemy and you do have an energy advantage, you can do a vertical scissors, a corkscrew, and oftentimes you can outpace them. You do have a good energy retention, a good powerful engine at high altitude. The only downside is the rate of climb, 12.3 meters per second. Pretty average for 2.7 battle rating, but not great overall. There are planes that will outclimb you. For example, the BF-109Es, I think they've got about a 19 meters per second climb, or 18 meters per second climb, sorry. But 2.7 is it's quite a busy battle rating, isn't it? It's like 4.7 or 5.7. You never really see up tiers. Very rarely see them. The majority of the games will be 0.3 above or below. So like I say, if you manage to get on an equal setting, an equal energy state with the enemy, you can outspeed them, you can outdive them mainly, you can outgun them. Don't disappointed with the ammo whatsoever on this plane. 650 cals. You use the universal belts, you get 4 out of 5 which are incendiary rounds, which is pretty good. They do set a lot of fires. It's basically the baby version of APITs later on. I wouldn't really recommend stealth belts for this. I haven't seen a notable difference in damage output. Definitely wouldn't use tracers, grounds or defaults though. Obviously with being a premium you get them unlocked. You do have access to a 500 and £1,000 bomb. However, it significantly hampers your performance, cutting 3 meters per second off your climb rate, which I would emphasise you do need. So what are the downsides of this aeroplane? Well, I said it has a great dive speed and it does, but it does quite heavily compress, especially the rudder. It's very hard to get your guns on target coming out of a very steep dive and at high speed, which kind of takes away from the fact it's a boom and zoomer. You can't really boom if you can't get the guns on target. As well, in slow turning engagements, you also find your rudder not really wanting to work. So it's kind of like a jet plane, where if you're too slow or too fast, your control surface don't really work. Kind of a loose comparison, but you'll see in later clips that even in turn fights you can't really get your nose around if you have to use the WASD keys. As soon as you let go of the keys, the nose will jump and throw off your aim. But apart from that, there aren't too many disadvantages. If you place yourself right, you get into a good position, maintain speed, there's not really anything that can touch you. So usage in battle. I'd say that this aircraft is mainly a boom and zoomer, but it can be used as an energy fighter if you know that you have an energy advantage over your opponent. Like I said, it's got a mediocre climb rate, so you do need to side climb. I climb up to about 4,000 meters to one side, then turn in. Climb initially at a 15 degree, then get to 4,000 meters, then drop it down to a 10 degree climb. I think you can climb at a 10 degree over 4k at about 315 kilometers an hour. When you're initially climbing at 15 degrees, you'll only manage 270. So as soon as you see an enemy, as soon as the red comes on, so I'd get level, get your speed up, and you can dictate the fight then. If you do merge with an enemy, you can choose to extend and draw the distance and bait him into an energy attack like a Chandeli. If the enemy turns and bleeds all their energy, you could go straight up into like a traditional merge and come back down on top of him. If you're low on energy and you're being dived on yourself, I'd put it into a dive. This way you can equalise the energy with the plane, give you a bit more of a chance. It's kind of a one-hit wonder, this plane. If you're at an energy disadvantage to a plane, there's not much you can do to get out of it. It's similar to the late model BF-109Ks, for example, with Spitfires or American energy fighters. If they get above you, you can't really do anything to regain that advantage. I'd say your flaps are one of your greatest weapons in this plane, because people will not expect you to be able to pull some of the manoeuvres you do. So your flaps combined with your powerful engine, you can do some pretty fancy vertical manoeuvres. So why should you fly this plane? Well, it's at 2.7, it's in the British tech tree, which importantly means you very rarely face the Japanese, which tend at low tier just to club anything. You also don't really fight the Russians. Another thing is, Britain at 2.7, it's got quite a variety of fighters. We compare that to America, P-40, the Wildcats, and then a few bombers. They're all boom and zoomers. Most people don't really know how to play boom and zoomers. If we go into the British tech tree, you've got the Spitfires, all great planes, Typhoon, Sea Hurricanes. The only reason they've got those BRs is because of the guns, not performance wise at all. But like I said, the Spitfire tree, you tend to have quite a lot of good players. Turn fighting's quite a bit easier, especially since boom and zoom. So you might be asking, why not buy the F4U-1A, the Japanese captured Corsair? And as you can see from my service record, I've got 136 kills with the Japanese one. It is a very good plane. It did used to club. The early Japanese planes are mostly turn fighters, and this was a boom and zoomer, so you could really, as your allies were turn fighting, you could boom in and get a lot of kills. But again, with the introduction of the I-180S, it's quite hard now. You do kind of get clubbed by the Russians as playing as Japan, and pretty much I'd say 8 out of 10 games you play as Japan now is against the Russians. But the choice is up to you really. I think it is a good plane, it's just the introduction of the I-180S has kind of knocked down its position as king. I think Britain, it mainly fates Germany. And most German fighters you go against, such as the Bf-109E, Bf-109Fs, if you can get above them or you can get a higher energy advantage than they do, it's very hard for them to regain that energy. So you might be thinking, so why not buy a Soviet premium to counter the I-180S? Well, to get the I-180S now, you'd have to purchase it off the market. The stock's going down every day, so as people buy them, it means the prices go up. The other Soviet premiums, you've got the P-40E one, you've got the P-39K one, both of which aren't really great. The P-40 versus Corsair, I take the Corsair any day. The American premium P-38, or XP-38, that's quite a good boom and zoom aircraft at lower tiers. But American teams at this tier, such as 2.7 and above, up to about 3.3, they're all pure boom and zoom fighters, which often aren't really played very well. You tend to have quite a lot of losses. A viable alternative is the Japanese Bf-109E7. It's got quite a good climb rate, however it isn't a high altitude fighter. Just because you can climb at high altitude means you should fight at high altitude. However, it is a 3.0 battle rating aircraft. However, it does receive the 720% Silver Line bonus. So my personal opinion on the Corsair Mark II, I think going against mainly German teams, if you can get a higher energy advantage above them, I think it's very hard for them to regain that advantage. You can boom and zoom them all the way down to your Spitfires. My personal combat record for the Corsair, I have 74 air kills and 30 deaths, with 42 games played. I wouldn't say the majority of the teams I've gone against are new people. I think there's quite a few people trying to club in the Bf-109 E1s. As long as you have, like I said before, as long as you have the energy advantage, you are pretty competitive in this tier. As long as you take time to climb, go to the side, 15-degree climb. I think this is a very good purchase for anyone who wants to learn how to boom and zoom. Like I say, it's in Britain, it's about an hour's work on minimum wage to afford this aircraft. I think it'll get you quite far up the British tech tree. It has good top speed, good roll, good dive, fairly good energy retention. Got a very good armament if you use the API belts, or the universal belts. It does have quite a weak rudder and control surface compression at high speeds, but I think it's a good purchase. And we'll go into some gameplay. So we're on Norway. I do know the name of this one because I play it that pissing much. So a quick head on tip, I want to aim for that little red dot just below the name. Didn't get the kill then, but we did get a crit from over a kilometre. So this is the beast mode territory, I'd say. Bf-109s, I think they're high altitude fighters. So that Bf-109 stalling himself out, going for my teammate. Always better to have a teammate more than it is to have a kill. So go for it, I missed the kill, ironically. So now I'm extending. If I'd have turned with him, would have blew all my speed or would have left me open? I see, notice on the map there, I see another Bf-109 coming in. So this is a war on 3 fronts at the minute. So I know Benji's critted. Still worried about the BF-109 behind me. The one below me, he'd have a hard time catching me. You can see at this altitude my acceleration. When I pan back in a minute, it's not gaining on me anymore. The speed of this thing at high altitude is a beast. You very rarely fight at this altitude though, at 2.7, just because everyone's furballs at the bottom. Attempt to make some long shots, don't get him. Now, instead of rolling through, trying to get him, extend. Then re-engage. So he's going to try and turn back. Notice he's turning in a vertical where I turned in a down. Go for a quick shot, then use one manoeuvre to dodge both enemies. And I'm tempted there to turn, fight him, but no. We're straying. Going to extend, get speed. So at least that's what I think, because that BF-109E surprised me. We do the same manoeuvre. My flaps, my engine, a lot more powerful than him. Does manage to get a hit. We have teammates coming in. Perfect bait. So now I'm hunting down those two BF-109s. There's an E and an F model. So I missed the first head on I did today, but I'm not going to miss this one. I think this one's a beauty. Got 400 meter convergence. So aim to the side. And we get him. This guy, I think he's the guy that was crit from the beginning. Don't think he's got any engine. Just a nice little bit of energy fighting. This is a high altitude monster, guys. Just a shame you never really see it this high. Alright guys, so we're here on Malta. It's a short version as you can see, because we've already met the enemy after a minute and a half of climbing. Realistically here, should have leveled out and brought up my speed. If you meet the enemy and they're only slightly above you, it's far better to just have higher speed than it is to be at the same altitude. You can always climb to them. You can extend past them. If they turn, they'll bleed all that speed. So I wouldn't advise what I'm doing here, but it's how I get out of this trouble that I think is important. Really shows the low altitude power this thing has, although I wouldn't recommend getting yourself into this position. Being nice and high and fast is the only way to play this. It's the only way you'll be able to carry. You won't be able to carry low in this thing. So I'm not paying attention here, speaking to my mate in Discord. HE100 comes in, I'm slow. So he's quite accelerating pretty fast in dive. You notice when I roll and when I turn the nose slightly, the acceleration drops significantly. Now I assumed I was in safety here because I've dived. But quite a few people have told me that HE100 is it's a bit overpowered at the tier. That is a 1.7 aircraft. He's a full BR lower than me. He's faster than me on the deck and in a dive. But as we'll see in a second, he doesn't have a better engine. I do apologise, there is a slight visual glitch. It is all on Gaijin's part though. I'm going to take him to a hard left hand turn. Try and bleed our speed. And go into a vertical corkscrew. Vertical, then to a horizontal. Combat flaps out, full power. He's stored himself. I'm still pretty manoeuvrable here. I think I've got takeoff flaps out. I'm doing 270. Back into combat flaps, now to raised. You can see just how unwilling the rudder is to actually turn the nose. Do crit him there. Don't think it was a massive crit though. But I can easily outturn him. And that's him dead. Now there's a BF-109 above me, closing fast. I should be dead here. That BF-109 has all the advantages. For some reason he chooses not to engage me. So now I should be heading straight ahead, getting speed up. The HE100. I think he's damaged, but he's dead now. Now here I'm talking to my mate on Discord. He's there in that plane. He's a very beginner. His first few matches of the game. Trying to protect him, trying to show him the ropes. But I've bled all my speed. BF-109 rightfully chooses the target that's going the same direction as him. It's an easier target. He's essentially separated us both, got us in between us. And he manages to kill the other Corsair. And he's doing the right thing here, he's extending, he's climbing. He's getting back that altitude advantage. I meanwhile keeping it on level, get my speed back. So he's diving on me in a shallow dive. He's not going to have as much energy as if it was a steep dive. So again, hard left hand turn. Instead of going up and to the left, we're going up and to the right. Pop my flaps, full power. Eagers into the vertical, thinking he's safe. Rocky boom and zoom mistake. Guns on for a split second and he's dead. You can see even at 180 km per hour I can roll over pretty well. Your engine and your flaps in this thing at low altitude are your friends. You really can do quite some impressive vertical manoeuvres if you need to. I wouldn't recommend it. I'd stay high, stay fast, boom and zoom, bat your enemies down for your friendlies. And we'll move on to our next game. So for those interested in manual engine controls, you have 3 supercharged gears. First gear at sea level to 2000 meters, second gear at 2000 to 5000, then the third gear at 5000 above meters. Set your prop pitch to 100 in a climb, 95 to 92% during dogfights. You can set your oil radiators to 33% and pretty much be fine throughout the entire game. Here we're playing it how it should be played. We're in dive, going on a BF-109. I think he is injured because he is pretty slow. Crit his right flap, doesn't really do any damage. Pretty certain he's got damage, as I said. They're going very slow, so I'm pretty happy just to extend straight. None of these planes have the speed to catch me here, so I can put it into a horizontal. If those BF-109s turn, they'd lose all their energy, be very slow, be very open to attack. That's exactly what one of them does. He's right behind us at the minute. So I see that, put it into a 20-degree climb. Even in a 20-degree climb, I'm separating from him. There's going to be a very cruise Chandale. Turn back into him. When he gets within about 1.1 kilometre, turn into him and put it into a bit of a vertical. If he commits, he's going to prop hang and stall. He doesn't, but he's already going too slow. So turn it over, put it in combat flaps, then take off for a minute, then back into combat, and just roll over. These flaps are amazing, the engine power is amazing at this altitude. And you just feel really satisfied when you get an actual energy kill. So we're here, got a BF-109 high, got my nose in a shallow dive, at 500 km an hour, I'm pretty safe here. Now it's pretty obvious to me that BF-109 is trying to lure me away. Instead, we turn away. If he wants to fight me, he can do it on my terms. Fortunate with the P39N, doesn't have the same idea as me. I think he's pretty obviously a new player. I saw what was coming a mile off. So he's prop hanging in a P39N, sorry. So out of... if I tell him in chat to dive away, I can just see what's coming. It's like a tragedy so bad you can't look away. So I'll tell him to dive in chat. I think he does. Just checking behind me, I think I am the highest fighter at the minute. 420 km an hour coming in. Try and zoom after him. Don't manage to get the kill. My engine's a lot more powerful. Should have rode it into a horizontal here if he'd carried on turning, but it goes into a negative. Not negative, sorry, into a dive. Now it's pointless for me to follow him down there now. We'll be throwing away our advantages just for a quick kill. I think I'm the highest fighter, but I don't know I'm the highest fighter. So I'll level it out again. So we've currently got enemy fighters at our airfield. I don't know how that's happened. So I'm just patrolling at the minute. The Hurricanes are having a hard time fighting that BF-109. Take a speculative shot. Wasn't expecting anything. Like you saw there in the background, that BF-109's back. Didn't realise in the clouds. Have to go evasive. Just look how quickly he's stalling. Just how much power I've got in my engine. We're in takeoff flaps. Landing flaps. You can just see how quickly I'm turning compared to him. Back into combat flaps. Just look, I'm turning. It's like a spit. It's like a zero. But let down by the rudder. Slow speed engagements and high speed engagements, the rudder just lets you down. I would have been a kill that if this was a Spitfire. So I'll put it into a vertical again, just to be safe, so we can't hit him. And spoilers, I'm not going to get this kill. It goes into the cloud and I can't see. Very hard to lead a target and you can't see where it's going. Do you manage to get a hit? Firing at any long range of this would just be a bit of a waste of ammo, especially in the clouds we can't see. So I pull off, don't want to give up all my advantage. So I think the main bunch of fighters are all been gone. I'm going to head back to our airfield and help out the fighters there. So we're coming out the clouds. That RE-2002, I think it's been battered by our anti-aircraft guns, but don't feel any guilt at all. He's been attacking aircraft on the ground. As you can see, just trying to demonstrate the poor rudder. You see the nose is dipping as I'm trying to roll. Very luckily get a crit into his right wing. Does manage to land it. They extend a little bit, then go into a roll. Gives me more time to shoot him at this bit. Poor shooting from me, do set him on fire though. And that's this game done. Another good example of just energy fighting mixed in with boom and zooming. It's not about playing a fighter in a dedicated role per se, more of it's knowing what manoeuvre to do when. You can't boom and zoom all the time, sometimes you've got to do some rolls to go evasive. So guys, I hope you found this video useful. It's turned out to be a bit longer than I expected. But for 1,150 Golden Eagles and at 2.7, I think this is a belting little aircraft. Like I say, 2.7, this plane's very forgiving. You can play it in quite a few different roles if you set yourself up right. You can see here we're at high altitude in a dogfight. Well, it's more of an energy fight than a dogfight, but like I say, it's not just purely a boom and zoom aircraft if you know how to set yourself up well. At high altitude you can turn with BF-109s, you do have the engine power to energy fight them at high altitude. At low altitude though, you are pretty much just a boom and zoom aircraft. You can't turn, you can't out-turn many other things, you can't really dogfight with any other things. So that's why I think it's very important to climb at the beginning, set yourself up in a good position and then dive down on enemies. If you see an enemy diving like we see in this video, I wouldn't typically tend to follow them down because you're just wasting all your altitude advantage. You want to make sure all the enemies are below you before you start dedicating full boom and zoom attacks. But like I say guys, this is my go-to plane for when I need to let off some steam or I need to relax after a hard day of playing 5.7. or 9.7. It's a bit sad that you don't get the 720% silver lion booster which you get on some other premiums, but I think there's a reason for it only being 540, and I think that's because Benghazi know it's so good. Main competitors I'd say in terms of premiums for the British would be the Boomerang or the Hellcat. Hellcat might be a bit more forgiving because it is a turn fighter, but it is a 3.7. So I hope you enjoyed that, guys. I'll see you in the next one.